So I want you to picture something for a second.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
It's a Monday morning. You've just walked into your office, you've got your coffee in hand, and you're ready to start the week.
Sounds like a normal Monday.
Right, but when you get to your desk, you can't actually see the surface of it.
Yeah.
There's a stack of files sitting there that is literally physically taller than you are.
Yeah, that is not a great way to start a Monday.
No, definitely not. And imagine that every single one of those files represents a real person. Someone whose bank account was just drained, or whose identity was stolen, or who's being actively harassed online.
Right. They're all waiting for you to help them.
Exactly. But here is the kicker. While you're standing there, just staring at this absolute mountain of paperwork, your phone pings. 5 more cases just came in.
It's just endless.
Yeah.
And that anxiety-inducing scenario, I mean, that isn't hypothetical. That is the daily reality for cybercrime investigators right now, particularly in India.
Yeah, it's total flood.
We're looking at a situation where the sheer scale of digital fraud, of cybercrime, has completely outpaced human capacity. We just can't handle it manually anymore.
And that data flood is exactly where we're starting today's deep dive. We are looking at how law enforcement is basically trying to build a boat to survive that flood.
A very high-tech boat.
Right. Specifically, we're zooming in on this massive digital experiment happening right now in the state of Maharashtra, India. It's a platform with a very sci-fi sounding name, actually. It's called MahaCrimeOS.
Yeah, MahaCrimeOS. It does sound like something out of a movie, doesn't it?
It really does.
But this is very real. And the sources we're unpacking for you today, which include some pretty detailed reports from the Brennan Center for Justice and the Tech and Justice Project over the University of Oxford, they suggest that this isn't just a local story. This is really a glimpse into the future of policing globally.
Right, because the central tension we found in these sources is just fascinating. On one side, we have this tool that is putting up incredible numbers. I mean, we're talking about turning months of grunt work into just a few days.
Which sounds like a total miracle for a broken system.
Absolutely. But, and there is always a but, on this show, we have to look at the other side of the coin.
We do.
We have civil liberties advocates and legal scholars waving these giant red flags. They're asking what happens when you supercharge policing without having a rule book in place first.
And that right there is the mission for this deep dive. We're going to try to figure out if we can actually have it both ways. Can we deploy AI-powered policing to save a drowning system? Or are the risks to privacy and justice just way too high?
Especially in a place where the laws just haven't caught up to the tech yet.
Exactly. But to really understand the stakes here, I think we first have to understand just how bad things were before this system showed up. You mentioned that giant stack of files earlier, but the actual metrics from the Maharashtra police are staggering.
Yeah, I was reading through the background on this, and paralysis really feels like the right word. The sources say that traditionally, just preparing a single cybercrime case, like just getting the paperwork ready for court, took an officer 2-3 months.
2 to 3 months for one single case. Just try to wrap your head around the math on that.
I'm trying to. So if I'm a victim of credit card fraud today and I call the police, you're telling me the officer might not even finish the paperwork for the guy in line before me until, what, nearly summer?
Pretty much. And that bottleneck, it's purely manual labor. It's an officer sitting there staring at Excel sheets, trying to make sense of bank statements that are all in totally different formats.
Oh, man.
They're cross-referencing call detail records line by line. It is mind-numbing repetitive work.
And because of that, the average officer could realistically only handle one active case a month.
One case a month. Meanwhile, digital payments in India have just exploded over the last few years. The economy digitized so incredibly fast that the crime digitized right along with it.
So you have a tsunami of complaints coming in and a police force that's basically moving at the speed of a typewriter.
Exactly. So, enter MahaCrimeOS.
Now, when I first saw that name in the source stack, I kind of pictured a robot cop kicking down doors. But the sources describe it more like an investigation co-pilot. That sounds a lot friendlier. What is it actually doing on a day-to-day basis?
Think of it less like a robot and more like a hyper-efficient secretary that literally never sleeps. It leverages large language models very similar to the tech behind the chatbots we all use today and automation to handle all the data-heavy lifting.
So it's reading through the files.
It's ingesting them. It processes the citizen complaints, it extracts the relevant digital evidence, and it structures that messy data. But it actually goes a lot further than just organizing things.
How so?
It standardizes the whole workflow. For example, it generates the specific legal notices an officer needs to send to a bank or a telecom company to request user data.
Wait, so the officer doesn't have to sit there and type out Dear bank manager, please send the records for account X.
Nope. The system generates it instantly in the correct legal format. It automates that huge administrative burden so the human officer can actually focus on complex decision-making.
Wow.
And the results reported in the source material are, honestly, kind of shocking.
Shocking good or shocking bad?
Shocking in terms of efficiency. You remember that 2 to 3 month timeline we just talked about?
Yeah, the bottleneck.
Right. With MahaCrimeOS, that prep time drops down to about a week.
From 3 months to a week. That is, I mean, that's not just an improvement. That's a total revolution in how they work.
It really is. And the capacity per officer jumps from handling one case at a time to actively managing 7 or 8 cases simultaneously.
That's huge. If you're a citizen waiting for justice, that's literally the difference between your case being solved and your file just gathering dust forever in a cabinet.
Exactly. There was another detail in the report, though, that I thought was really fascinating, and it's about language. The system specifically supports inputs in Marathi
Yeah, I saw that too. Why did the sources highlight that as such a massive deal?
because it's a huge issue for access to justice. Maharashtra is a massive, incredibly diverse state.
Yeah.
The official administrative language is Marathi. But think about the internet for a second. Think about code, server logs, banking URLs. What language is all of that usually written in?
English. Almost entirely English.
Right, so previously you had this massive barrier. You needed officers who were not only tech-savvy, but also fluent enough in English to parse the digital evidence.
And then they'd have to translate it back into Marathi for the official police files and the court documents, right?
Exactly, which completely narrows the pool of who can actually do this job to a tiny, tiny group of people. It was an elitist bottleneck.
That makes so much sense.
So MahaCrimeOS handles that translation and processing automatically. Allows a local officer, someone who really understands the community and the context on the ground, but might not be an English expert, to effectively investigate complex cybercrimes. It genuinely democratizes the police work.
Okay, so if we stop the deep dive right now, this would just be a glowing review. We'd be saying, problem solved, great job, everyone. We have efficiency, we have language access, we have happy citizens getting their money back.
It's a very seductive narrative. This is exactly what we call techno-solutionism. It looks absolutely perfect on a spreadsheet.
But I know we're not done, because we have this report from the Brennan Center for Justice sitting right here in our source stack, and they are definitely not popping champagne. They are sounding a massive alarm.
They really are. And this is where we have to pivot to the hidden costs of all this efficiency. Because when you have a system that is this incredibly powerful, you have to ask, how does it actually know who to look for?
Right, which brings us to a concept called data fusion. I feel like this is a term that gets thrown around a lot in tech circles, but let's break it down for everyone listening. What does data fusion actually mean in the context of policing?
Okay, imagine you're a detective back in 1990. You have a physical manila folder on a suspect. In that file is the evidence you've explicitly collected about a specific crime. Maybe a witness statement, maybe a physical fingerprint. That's it.
Right, just the facts of the case in front of you?
Data fusion is like taking that manila folder and magnetically attaching every other piece of digital exhaust that exists in the world to it. The AI doesn't just look at the specific case evidence. It aggregates data from everywhere.
From where exactly?
Social media, CCTV facial recognition logs, mobile tower pings, commercial databases, vehicle registries.
Wait, so it's pulling in stuff that might have absolutely nothing to do with the crime?
Potentially, yes. It creates what the vendors call a 360-degree view of a person. And the Brennan Center warns that the specific danger here is something called indiscriminate surveillance.
Indiscriminate meaning it's watching people who aren't even suspects.
Exactly. Think about how mobile tower data works. Let's say a crime happens at a local coffee shop, and the police pull the cell tower data for that block. They don't just get the criminal's phone data. They get the phone data of literally everyone who was in or near that coffee shop at the time.
So me getting a latte, the barista, the guy waiting for the bus across the street.
All of you. And now the AI has fused your identity into this massive investigation graph. You're a node in the network. The system might flag you as an associate just because your phone pinged near the suspect's phone.
Even though I've done nothing wrong.
Right, you haven't done anything wrong, but the algorithm has created a mathematical link between you and a crime.
That is terrifying because it totally lacks human context. A human detective might look at the footage and say, oh, that's just a guy buying a latte, ignore him. But the computer just sees a data point intercepting with another data point.
And the computer treats that intersection as a hard fact, which leads us directly into the other major risk the sources highlight, which is predictive policing.
This is the Minority Report stuff, right? Trying to stop the crime before it even happens.
It's a little less Hollywood than that, and honestly, it's a lot grittier. It's about using historical data to tell police where to patrol or which specific people to scrutinize more heavily. But here's the fatal flaw. What if the historical data you're feeding the AI is wrong?
Or bias.
Precisely. This is the concept of dirty data. Historical crime data is almost never an objective map of where all crimes were actually committed. It's a map of where police historically discovered crime and made arrests.
That is such a crucial distinction, because if the police have spent the last 20 years heavily patrolling neighborhood A, maybe because of some internal bias or just an old policy, they're going to have a mountain of arrest records for neighborhood A.
Exactly. And almost zero records for neighborhood B, even if the same amount of crime was happening there.
Yeah.
So you feed that skewed history into the AI. The AI looks at the numbers and says, wow, 90% of your arrests are in neighborhood A. You should definitely send more patrol cars there tomorrow.
So they do.
Yeah.
And because they are there, they catch more people doing minor things.
Which creates more arrest data, which they feed right back into the system. And the AI says, see, I was right. My prediction was highly accurate. It creates a closed feedback loop. It just supercharges the existing bias.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
And the truly dangerous part is that the AI gives that bias a veneer of scientific objectivity. A police chief can stand up at a press conference and say, we aren't targeting this community. The supercomputer simply told us this is the high-risk zone. It washes human hands of the responsibility.
That is heavy. It turns human prejudice into mathematical certainty. But couldn't we just check the math? Like, can't an auditor look at the code and say, hey guys, this algorithm is clearly racist?
You would certainly hope so. But that brings us to what the sources call the black box problem.
The black box.
Right. Many of these tools, they aren't built by the police. They're built by private tech vendors. They are companies selling a commercial product to the government. And they claim that their algorithms are intellectual property.
So it's a trade secret.
Exactly. They say, we can't show you the underlying code because then our competitors would steal our proprietary tech. But think about what that means in a real courtroom. If you are arrested because an algorithm flagged you as high risk, your defense lawyer naturally wants to know why. How did the machine make that specific decision?
And the vendor's answer is, sorry, we can't tell you. It's a corporate secret.
You literally cannot cross-examine the main witness against you because the witness is a line of code protected by copyright law. It creates a massive gaping hole in due process. You simply can't audit the decision.
That seems absolutely wild. I mean, we're talking about India here, the world's largest democracy. Surely there is a law for this. You can't just unleash black box AI on a billion people without some kind of rule book.
This brings us to the findings from the Tech and Justice Project at the University of Oxford. And the short answer, which is definitely going to surprise you, is no.
No law at all.
There is no comprehensive AI law in India right now. The regulatory landscape is essentially a void.
So who is deciding how this powerful tech is actually used on the streets?
The police agencies themselves. Or they're relying on general criminal procedure codes. Laws that were written decades ago, long before anyone knew what an algorithm was or what a large language model could even do.
That is like trying to regulate a nuclear power plant using the safety manual for a 19th century steam engine.
That is an incredibly apt analogy. The Oxford researchers point out that governance right now is fragmented and it's entirely reactive. It's ad hoc. They deploy the tool first, see what happens out in the wild, and then maybe write a policy later if something breaks and makes the news.
And reading through the notes here, this isn't just about the police either, is it? It sounds like this tech is seeping into the courtrooms too.
It is totally pervasive. The sources note that AI is now being used for transcription in courts, for translating witness testimony, and even by prosecutors for legal research and building cases.
So play that out for me. If the initial police investigation is flawed because of some AI bias,
and the prosecutor builds their case using AI tools that might share those exact same data biases,
and the court record itself is transcribed by AI,
then the entire pipeline of the justice system is compromised. You cannot guarantee a fair trial for a citizen if the evidence, the investigation, and the official record are all being filtered through these opaque, unregulated algorithms.
It's not just about efficiency anymore. It's about the fundamental integrity of truth in a courtroom.
It fundamentally changes the relationship between the citizen and the state. It shifts us away from a model of human judgment and reasonable doubt over to a model of algorithmic probability.
Okay, let's take a breath. We have unpacked a lot of intense stuff here. We have the incredible efficiency of MahaCrimeOS, which, let's be honest, is necessary. The police are drowning, they need the help. But we also have this terrifying potential for a biased surveillance state. The sources seem to break this down into three core dimensions. Can we synthesize those for the listener?
Sure. I think it boils down to three core questions we have to answer as a society. Number one, does it improve capacity? The answer is a resounding yes. Going from 1 case to 8 cases a month is a massive breakthrough. We really cannot ignore that benefit.
Right. If I'm the victim of a hack, I don't care about the philosophy of algorithms. I want my money back, and I want the bad guy caught right now.
Exactly. Number two, are the frameworks accountable? The answer there is currently no. The guardrails are missing. And number three, what are the civil liberties implications? The answer is high risk. We are looking at potential mass surveillance and automated supercharged bias.
So where do we go from here? It feels like a trade-off we didn't explicitly agree to. We are trading privacy and due process for speed and efficiency. But looking at the recommendations in the source material, it doesn't seem like the experts are saying burn it all down.
No, they aren't. They are realists. They know the data flood isn't going away, and you can't put the AI genie back in the bottle. So the path forward involves some very concrete structural steps to make this deployment safe.
What's the first step they recommend?
Human oversight, but real oversight. Not just a rubber stamp where an officer clicks agree on whatever the screen says.
What does real oversight actually look like in a precinct?
It means extensively training officers to interrogate the AI. They need to understand that the computer can be, and often is, wrong. They need the confidence and the training to look at a machine prediction and say, no, that doesn't make sense, I'm overriding it.
That is a huge cultural shift, though. We are all trained from birth to trust computers. If a calculator says 2 plus 2 equals 5, for a split second, you doubt your own brain before you doubt the machine.
Which is exactly why critical thinking needs to become a core, fundamental police skill. You cannot just be an operator of the software. You have to be an auditor of its logic.
And speaking of auditing, that's another big recommendation in the reports, right?
Yes. Independent audits. You need external bodies, people who aren't the police and definitely aren't the software vendors, to come in regularly and test the system. Check it for bias. Actively try to break it. See if it discriminates against certain zip codes or demographics.
Like a health inspector coming into a restaurant, but for police algorithms.
Exactly. And transparency is absolutely key here. Agencies need to publicly publish what data they are feeding the machines and how the outputs are generated. We have to move away from this proprietary secret model when it comes to public justice.
If a piece of code can put a person in jail, the public has a fundamental right to know how that code works. That seems like a pretty basic baseline for a democracy.
And finally, community engagement.
Yeah.
You cannot just drop a massive surveillance architecture onto a population without their input. The public needs a seat at the table in how these tools are shaped and deployed.
It sounds like we need to stop treating AI like a magic wand that just solves all our systemic problems and start treating it like what it really is, a very powerful, potentially dangerous power tool. It needs safety guards, it requires rigorous training to use, and you definitely shouldn't turn it on without supervision.
That's it, exactly. Technology is never value neutral. It embodies the assumptions of its creators and the biases of the data it learns from. If you feed an AI a biased history, it will predictably generate a biased future.
That is the thought that really sticks with me from all this research. The idea that the AI is really just a mirror. It's reflecting our own messy, imperfect human history right back at us, but it's doing it at the speed of light.
And that is exactly why the regulatory void in India, and honestly this applies to so many other countries experimenting with this tech right now, is so critical to fix. Without a specific AI law to enforce these safeguards, the audits, the transparency, the human oversight, we are relying entirely on the goodwill of the state agencies.
And history tells us pretty clearly that relying on goodwill isn't usually enough to protect civil liberties.
It never has been.
So MahaCrimeOS is really a giant test case for all of us. It shows us that we can solve the backlog problem, we can handle the data flood, but the cost of that unprecedented speed is a whole new set of hidden dangers that we just haven't built defenses for yet.
It connects right back to that tension we started this whole conversation with.
Yeah.
We're rapidly moving from a world where police capacity was limited by human constraints. How many hours are in a shift? How fast can a detective type? How many files can they physically read?
To a world where policing is limited only by computing power and server space.
That is a massive societal shift. And it leaves us with a pretty provocative thought to end on. for anyone listening.
What's that?
If the future of policing is just this unregulated race toward maximum algorithmic capability, what actually happens to the core concept of innocent until proven guilty when an algorithm has already mathematically profiled you before you have even committed a crime?
Yeah, that is something that is going to keep me up at night. It's one thing to be investigated for something you actually did. It's a completely different reality to be preemptively profiled for who the data thinks you are.
And that is why the regulatory framework isn't just boring legal jargon. It is quite literally the barrier between a police state and a functioning democracy in the digital age.
A huge thank you to the researchers at the Brennan Center, the Tech and Justice Project at Oxford University, and the teams analyzing the MahaCrimeOS deployment for these incredibly vital insights. This is a conversation that is only going to get louder as these tools spread to more cities.
Absolutely. It is a rapidly developing story and one we all need to be watching very closely.
Thanks to everyone listening for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and we will catch you on the next one.